I've loved you since we were kids, Harrison. Please don't leave me, Kiana Lawson whispered, her voice trembling as she leaned in, her lips brushing his forehead in a desperate tear-soaked kiss. The sterile glow of the Shepherd Center's room illuminated her fervent plea, her heart aching for her childhood friend, the heir to an old money empire, trapped in a minimally conscious state. Unbeknownst to her, Isabel Caldwell stood just outside the door, her fists clenched, eyes narrowing in a mix of resentment and unease, witnessing every vulnerable word and gesture that threatened her carefully guarded world. Little did Kiana know that this stolen moment would unravel a tangled legacy of family secrets, betrayal, and redemption, forever altering the Caldwell dynasty and igniting a love that heals wounds deeper than any accident. Dive into this gripping tale of hidden truths and enduring passion. Subscribe to follow every twist. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is. What revelations await? Stay tuned to discover how one kiss changes everything. The hum of fluorescent lights buzzed like distant bees in the sterile corridors of Shepherd Center, Atlanta's beacon for the broken and the resilient. Kiana Lawson adjusted her scrubs, the fabric whispering against her skin as she pushed through the double doors of the rehabilitation wing. At 27, she'd seen her share of shattered lives, athletes felled by strokes, veterans wrestling with phantom limbs. But nothing prepared her for the name on the chart handed to her that morning by Dr. Ellis. Harrison Caldwell, the doctor said, his voice clipped with the weight of discretion. Minimally conscious state after a car wreck. Family's old money, so expect scrutiny. You're our best for neuro rehab, Kiana. Get him moving if you can. Kiana's fingers tightened on the clipboard. Harrison Caldwell. The name sliced through her like a forgotten melody, pulling her back to sun-drenched afternoons in Grant Park, where laughter echoed off oak trees and dreams felt as tangible as the dirt under their sneakers. They'd been kids then, her from a modest duplex on the edge of the neighborhood, him from the sprawling estate up the hill. Best friends, inseparable until the world of wealth tugged him away, leaving her with echoes and a locket she'd never removed. She entered room 412, the air thick with the antiseptic tang of hope and despair. Harrison lay there, a shadow of the boy she'd known, his body connected to monitors that beeped in rhythmic indifference. Tubes snaked from his arms, and his chest rose and fell with mechanical precision. Minimally conscious, not comatose, but trapped in a twilight where awareness flickered like a faulty bulb. The accident had been all over the news, a high-speed crash on I-85, attributed to fatigue from his relentless oversight of the Caldwell real estate empire. But Kiana sensed more. The scars on his hands, the faint tension in his jaw. They whispered of burdens heavier than steel and concrete. She set down her bag and approached the bed, her heart pounding a staccato rhythm. "Harrison," she murmured, checking his vitals. No response, just the steady hum of machines. She began the routine, gentle manipulations of his limbs, flexing elbows and knees to ward off atrophy. Her hands moved with practiced care, but her mind wandered to those long-ago days. Picnics under the pavilion, where he'd share stories of his grandfather's empire. Hotels rising like monoliths. Land deals that shaped the city. Even then, at 12, Harrison had carried a quiet unease, as if the weight of legacy pressed on his young shoulders. As she worked on his right arm, rotating the shoulder joint, words bubbled up unbidden. "Remember that summer we built the fort in the park?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the ventilator's sigh. "You insisted on using those old blankets from your attic, even though they smelled like mothballs. We dreamed of exploring the world, didn't we? Away from all this expectation." She paused, glancing at the door to ensure privacy. The center was quiet this early, nurses bustling in distant halls. Kiana had read the studies. Familiar voices could spark neural connections, pull patients from the fog. But this was more than therapy, it was confession. "I regretted letting you go, Harrison. When you left for boarding school, it felt like a piece of me vanished. You were my anchor in those chaotic years, my first real friend, my secret, everything." Her throat tightened. She'd never said it aloud, not even to herself in the mirror. Love. It had bloomed quietly like kudzu overtaking a fence, rooted in stolen glances and shared secrets. But their worlds diverged, her pursuing physical therapy to help folks like her mama, who couldn't afford fancy care. Him stepping into the Caldwell dynasty, building skyscrapers while bearing whatever boyish dreams remained. She shifted to his legs, lifting one knee and guiding it through range of motion exercises. The room felt smaller, the air charged with unspoken regrets. "You owe me a rematch at checkers," she continued, forcing a weak smile. "Last time you cheated. Don't deny it. And that locket you gave me, I still wear it. Every day. A reminder that some promises don't fade." The monitors droned on, unchanging. Kiana leaned closer, her breath stirring the air near his ear. "I've loved you since those park days, Harrison, through the silence, the years apart. If you can hear me, fight. Come back. Don't let this win." She straightened, wiping her hands on her scrubs, the vulnerability leaving her exposed. It was foolish, perhaps, pouring her soul into a void. But the research backed it. Auditory stimulation could bridge the gap, and deep down she clung to the hope that her words might reach him, like a lifeline tossed into murky waters. As she finished the session, noting his vitals in the chart, something caught her eye. The heart rate monitor, a subtle spike, just a few beats per minute faster than baseline. Coincidence? Muscle memory from the exercises? Or had her voice pierced the veil? Kiana froze, staring at the screen. "Harrison?" she whispered again, her pulse matching the uptick. No visible change, no twitch of fingers or flutter of eyelids, yet the anomaly lingered, a whisper of possibility in the clinical silence. She gathered her things, the locket cool against her chest. As she stepped toward the door, a shadow of doubt crept in. What if he could hear? What if her confessions echoed in that trapped mind, stirring something she couldn't control? Outside, the corridor bustled with morning rounds. Kiana glanced back at the room, the door clicking shut behind her. Little did she know, the Caldwell family was already circling, their secrets as tangled as the vines in Grant Park. And Isabel, Harrison's iron-willed sister, would soon arrive to erect walls around her brother's fragile recovery. Walls that Kiana's words might just begin to crack. The spike on the heart monitor lingered in Kiana's mind like a half-heard whisper as she returned to Shepherd Center the next morning. The Atlanta sun filtered through the blinds of room 412, casting elongated shadows across Harrison's still form. She replayed the moment endlessly, his pulse quickening at her words, a fleeting bridge across the chasm of his silence. Was it real, or just the desperate hope of a therapist who'd let personal history bleed into professional duty? She began the session as always, her hands steady despite the turmoil inside. Flexing his fingers, she murmured softly, building on yesterday's confessions. "That fort we built, it collapsed in the rain, remember? But we rebuilt it stronger. You can do that now, Harrison. Rebuild." The words flowed more easily today, laced with encouragement drawn from their shared past. Grant Park's echoes fueled her, a reminder that beneath the Caldwell air lay the boy who'd once shared her dreams of escape from the city's unyielding grip. Midway through rotating his hip joint, the door swung open with a sharp click. A woman strode in, her presence slicing the air like a winter gust. Isabel Caldwell, Harrison's elder sister by 5 years, embodied the family's unyielding facade. Tailored suit impeccable, phone in hand as if the world bent to her schedule. She'd been mentioned in the news clippings Kiana had skimmed, the iron fist steering the Caldwell empire while her brother recovered, or, as the press spun it, while he rested from exhaustion. "Miss Lawson, I presume." Isabel's voice was polished steel, cool and commanding. She didn't wait for confirmation, her eyes flicking to Harrison's chart before settling on Kiana with dismissive scrutiny. "I'm Isabel Caldwell. I've been overseeing my brother's care. The doctors speak highly of your techniques." Kiana straightened, wiping her hands on a towel. "It's good to meet you, Ms. Caldwell. I've been working on preventing atrophy and stimulating neural pathways." Harrison's showing subtle signs. Isabel cut her off with a raised hand, her gaze sharpening. "Subtle signs? The accident was due to overwork, nothing more. Harrison pushed himself too hard managing our properties. What he needs is rest, not chatter." She glanced at the monitors, her lips thinning. "I've consulted specialists. Absolute quiet is paramount for minimally conscious patients. Limit your sessions to essentials. No unnecessary stimulation. Kiana felt a spark of defiance ignite. With respect, Ms. Caldwell, auditory input from familiar voices can aid recovery. Studies show... Studies! Isabel echoed the word like a dismissal, stepping closer to Harrison's bedside. She adjusted his blanket with mechanical precision, her fingers lingering a moment too long on the edge. I'm well versed in the literature. Our family has access to the best. I've arranged for neural imaging tomorrow, but under controlled conditions. No experiments. Kiana watched her closely. There was something off in Isabel's demeanor, a flicker of unease beneath the control. Why the rush to silence? Harrison's empire spanned hotels and developments across the South, built on generations of Caldwell ambition. But Kiana recalled his quiet confessions years ago, hints of unease with that legacy. Did Isabel sense the same burdens? As the session continued under Isabel's watchful eye, Kiana toned down her whispers, focusing on physical maneuvers. Yet her mind raced. Isabel hovered, firing questions at the nurses who poked in, demanding updates on press releases, ensuring no leaks about Harrison's condition. The Caldwell name must remain untarnished, she muttered into her phone during a call. Fatigue, that's the narrative. No speculation. By midday, Isabel had commandeered a conference with Dr. Ellis, steering the conversation away from cognitive therapies. Advanced stimulations? Too risky, she insisted, her voice brooking no argument. Focus on basics. He's fragile. Kiana lingered outside the room after, her notebook clutched tight. Isabel's reluctance gnawed at her. It wasn't just protectiveness, it felt like obstruction. Why reject methods that could accelerate recovery? Harrison's chart noted suspicious vehicle malfunction in the accident report, a detail buried under medical jargon. Overwork, or something deeper. That afternoon, during a brief unsupervised moment, Kiana resumed her soft encouragements. Fight through this, Harrison. Whatever weighs on you, you're stronger than it. The heart monitor dipped and rose, a subtle affirmation that fueled her resolve. But Isabel returned abruptly, her heels clicking like accusations. Miss Lawson, your time's up. I'll be monitoring all sessions from now on. Family prerogative. Her tone was final, a wall erected in an instant. Kiana nodded, gathering her tools, but the dismissal stung. As she exited, she caught Isabel leaning over Harrison, whispering something low and urgent. Words lost to the hum of machines. A chill settled in Kiana's chest. What secrets was Isabel guarding? That evening, alone in her apartment overlooking the park where it all began, Kiana couldn't shake the unease. Isabel's control felt like a barrier not just to therapy, but to truth. She pulled out Harrison's chart copies she discreetly noted, scanning for anomalies. The accident details nagged. Tampered steering, and those family whispers from years past. Determined, Kiana decided to dig deeper. Tomorrow, during her next session, she'd search his belongings more thoroughly. If Isabel was hiding something, Kiana owed it to the boy from Grant Park to uncover it. Little did she know, the notebook tucked away in his coat pocket held the key to unraveling the Caldwell legacy and the invisible injuries that bound them all. The shadows in Grant Park stretched long and thin as Kiana stared out her apartment window that night, the Caldwell enigma twisting like vines in her mind. Isabel's iron grip on Harrison's care wasn't mere protectiveness, it reeked of concealment. The accident report's buried note on vehicle malfunction gnawed at her, a loose thread in a tapestry of old money and unspoken burdens. By morning, resolve hardened her steps back to Shepherd Center. If answers hid in Harrison's world, she'd unearth them, starting with the overlooked belongings Isabel had dismissed as irrelevant. Room 412 greeted her with its familiar hush, the monitor's steady beep a metronome to her racing thoughts. Isabel hadn't arrived yet. Her schedule, Kiana had learned, prioritized board meetings over bedside vigils. Seizing the moment, Kiana began the therapy routine, her hands gliding over Harrison's limbs with mechanical efficiency. But her eyes darted to the coat rack in the corner, where his personal effects hung like relics from another life. A wool overcoat, scuffed from the crash, its pockets undisturbed since admission. Let's keep you limber today, she murmured, flexing his wrist while inching toward the coat. Her fingers slipped into the inner pocket, brushing leather, A wallet, perhaps? No. A small, weathered notebook, edges frayed as if carried everywhere. Heart pounding, she pulled it free, glancing at the door. Clear. She tucked it under her clipboard, resuming the exercises to mask her discovery. You're fighting in there, aren't you? I saw that heart rate jump yesterday. Hold on. Once satisfied, the coast remained empty. Kiana flipped open the notebook during a pause in the session. Harrison's handwriting stared back. Bold, hurried strokes that echoed the boy she'd known, always sketching plans in the park dirt. But these weren't doodles, pages filled with fragmented notes. Grandfather's deals, 1920s land grabs in Southside, displaced families, no compensation, records buried in archives. Underlined words leaped out. Reparations. Mistake. Return what's owed. Arrows connected ideas to a sketched outline of a trust fund, sums in the millions earmarked for descendants of the evicted. Kiana's breath caught. The Caldwell Empire she'd always known rose on Atlanta's booming real estate, hotels and developments, swallowing neighborhoods. But this, a deliberate reckoning with history's shadows, the kind that could topple reputations. Harrison had been piecing it together, his notes laced with urgency. Isabel knows fragments. She'll fight this. Legacy over justice. A chill traced her spine. Was this the weight he'd hinted at years ago? Memories flooded in, sharp as shattered glass. It was their last real conversation, 5 years back, at a cafe overlooking the park. Harrison had looked haunted then, fresh from inheriting more responsibilities after their father's death. The family's built on sand, Kiana, he'd confessed over cooling coffee. Grandpa's vision displaced whole communities. Black families like yours, pushed out for profit. I feel it like a chain around my neck. I want to fix it, use the wealth to make amends. But Isabel, she sees it as weakness, a threat to everything we built. She'd listened, her heart aching with unspoken love, urging him to follow his conscience. You're not them, Harrison. You're the one who sees people, not just properties. But he'd pulled back, the Caldwell walls closing in, and they drifted further apart. Now, holding his notebook, it all clicked. This was his silent rebellion, a plan to dismantle the facade of untarnished success. Kiana set the book aside, her hands trembling as she returned to therapy, guiding his leg through passive stretches. The words poured out now, not just confessions of love, but affirmations of his integrity. I found your notes, Harrison. That courage you wrote about, the will to right wrongs, that's the real you, not the heir, not the empire builder, the boy who shared his lunch with me when mama couldn't afford it. Fight for that man. Come back and finish what you started. Don't let silence bury this. The room felt alive with her whispers, the air humming as if his trapped mind absorbed every syllable. She spoke of their park days, weaving in his revelations. Remember how we talk about fairness? You hated bullies, even the ones in history books. This trust fund, it's you being brave, stronger than any accident. Wake up and claim it. Time slipped away, the session drawing to a close. Kiana slipped the notebook back into the coat, her mind reeling. If Isabel discovered this, what then? The sisters' control suddenly made sinister sense, guarding not just Harrison, but the family's pristine narrative. A soft beep from the monitor caught her, a slight elevation in brain activity, faint but there. Hope surged. You hear me, don't you? Keep pushing. As she packed up, the door burst open. Isabel swept in, her face a mask of composed fury, a tablet clutched like a shield. Miss Lawson, I've reviewed the logs. Your sessions are extended. Effective immediately, they'll be shortened. And I've decided Harrison will transfer to a private facility in Switzerland next week. More controlled environment, away from distractions. Kiana's stomach dropped. Transfer? But his progress was a subtle response to therapy. Moving him now could set him back. Isabel's eyes narrowed, a flicker of something, fear, crossing her features. Progress? Or wishful thinking? The decision's made. Family knows best. She turned to Harrison, her voice dropping to a murmur Kiana couldn't catch, then straightened. Prepare your final reports. This ends soon. Kiana nodded, but defiance burned within. Switzerland meant isolation, Isabel's total dominion. As she left the room, the notebook's secrets weighed heavily in her thoughts. Harrison's legacy of silence was cracking, and with it, the walls around him. But time was slipping away. If she didn't act in the next session, it might shatter everything before he could wake to mend it. The weight of Isabel's decree pressed on Kiana like a storm cloud as she navigated the bustling halls of Shepherd Center the following morning. Switzerland, a fortress of isolation where Harrison would be entombed under his sister's watchful eye, far from the familiar hum of Atlanta and the tentative sparks of recovery Kiana had coaxed from him. The notebook's revelations burned in her memory. Harrison's blueprint for redemption, a trust fund to atone for the Caldwell sins of displacement and greed. If he vanished now, that vision might die with his silence, buried beneath layers of family denial. She entered room 412 with a forced calm, the door clicking shut like a final verdict. Harrison lay unchanged, his form a silent testament to the invisible battles raging within. The monitors hummed their indifferent symphony, but Kiana's heart raced with urgency. This was her last session. Isabel had made that clear in a curt email last night, citing logistical necessities and barring extensions. No appeals, no delays. Kiana set down her bag, her fingers brushing the locket at her neck, a talisman against the encroaching loss. "All right, Harrison," she said softly, beginning the routine with his upper limbs. Her hands moved methodically, flexing elbows, rotating shoulders, but her voice carried the desperation of farewell. "We've come this far. Don't let them pull you away before you can fight back." She glanced at the door, half expecting Isabel to burst in, but the corridor remained quiet. Emboldened, she wove in threads from the notebook. "Those notes you left, about the land grabs, the family's pushed aside. That's bravery, Harrison. Real legacy. Not buildings and bank accounts, but justice. You were going to make it right. Don't stop now." As she transitioned to his lower body, lifting a knee through its range, memories surged like a tide. Their last summer in Grant Park, before college claimed him, fireflies dancing as they sat on a bench, Harrison fidgeting with a pebble. "Sometimes I feel like I'm carrying ghosts," he'd admitted, his voice low. "Grandpa's deals, they weren't clean. I want to use what we have to heal that." She'd nodded, her love swelling unspoken, terrified that confessing it would shatter their fragile bond. Now, with time slipping away, regret clawed at her. "I should have told you then," she whispered, her throat tight. "How much you meant to me, how I loved you. Not the Caldwell name, but you. The one who saw me when the world didn't." The session dragged on, each stretch a countdown. Kiana's mind raced for options. Confront Isabel, demand more time based on the subtle responses, the heart spikes, the faint neural flickers. But Isabel's walls were impenetrable, forged in boardrooms and family lore. A quick check of the chart confirmed it. Transfer papers initiated, flight booked for tomorrow. Panic edged in, sharpening her whispers. "If you can hear me, Harrison, hold on. This trust, it's your way out of the silence. Fight for it. For us. I've carried this love alone too long. Don't make me say goodbye without you knowing." She completed the final exercise, smoothing the sheet over his legs with trembling hands. The room felt smaller, the air thick with unsaid words. Tears pricked her eyes as she leaned over him, the locket dangling like a pendulum between them. "They think you're weak, Harrison," she murmured, her voice breaking. "But I know the truth. You're the one who dreamed of fixing things. Come back. Don't let them win." Impulse overtook her, desperation distilled into action. She cupped his face gently, her thumb tracing the scar on his temple, and pressed her lips to his forehead in a soft, lingering kiss. It tasted of salt from her tears, a vow sealed in vulnerability. "I've loved you forever. Please, wake up." She pulled back, wiping her eyes, the moment hanging heavy like fog. No immediate miracle, no eyes fluttering open, no hand grasping hers. Just the steady beep of monitors, mocking her recklessness. Kiana gathered her things, her chest aching with finality. This was it, the end of their reconnection, severed by Isabel's decree. As she reached the door, she turned for one last look. Goodbye, Harrison. If you ever, just know I tried. The corridor blurred through her tears as she stepped out, nearly colliding with a nurse. Everything all right, Kiana? The woman asked, concern etching her brow. Yeah, Kiana lied, forcing a nod. Just wrapping up. She hurried away, the locket thumping against her heart like a drum of regret. Switzerland loomed, a void where her words might echo unheard forever. But in her haste, she missed the subtle shift in room 412. The faint twitch of Harrison's finger against the sheet, a spark ignited by her kiss, flickering toward the surface like a buried flame ready to break free. The faint twitch of Harrison's finger echoed in the sterile silence of room 412 long after Kiana had left. A ripple in the pond of his entrapment that refused to still. It was subtle at first, a mere flex against the crisp sheet, but as the afternoon wore on, it grew purposeful, insistent. A passing nurse, glancing in during her rounds, froze at the sight. Mr. Caldwell? She whispered, her voice tentative. No response from his eyes, still sealed in that twilight haze. But the finger moved again, tapping rhythmically, as if Morse code from a buried soul. She hit the call button, summoning Dr. Ellis in a flurry of activity. Monitors were recalibrated, vitals double-checked. Minimally conscious, but this is intentional, the doctor murmured, sliding a communication board under Harrison's hand, a simple slate with letters etched in bold. Harrison, if you can hear me, spell something. Anything. Sweat beaded on his brow, his body straining against the invisible chains. Slowly, agonizingly, his finger traced. K-I-A-N-A. The room fell silent, the word hanging like a revelation. Kiana, Dr. Ellis read aloud, his eyes widening. The therapist? Get her back here now. Word reached Isabel first, of course. She was in a boardroom across town, fielding calls about the family's latest acquisition, when her phone buzzed with the update. Her grip tightened on the device, a crack in her polished veneer. He's, communicating? She echoed to the nurse on the line, her voice laced with something between relief and alarm. The transfer to Switzerland loomed tomorrow, paperwork signed, jet-fueled. This complication threatened her control, the carefully scripted narrative of overwork and quiet recovery. But denial wasn't an option. The doctors insisted on involving Kiana. Reluctantly, Isabel dialed, her tone clipped. Miss Lawson, return to the center immediately. There's been a development. Kiana's phone vibrated in her pocket as she wandered Grant Park, seeking solace among the oaks that had witnessed their childhood. The call shattered her fragile composure. Harrison, responsive? Her heart leaped, a wild drumbeat propelling her back to the center. She arrived breathless, scrubs rumpled from the rush, only to find Isabel waiting like a sentinel outside the room. This changes nothing, Isabel said flatly, her eyes cold. The transfer proceeds, but the doctors want you here for verification. Kiana nodded, brushing past without a word, her focus singular. The room buzzed with medical staff, but Dr. Ellis cleared them out at her arrival, leaving only the essentials. Harrison's eyes were open now, hazy, unfocused, but open. A weak rasp escaped his lips as she approached, the board still clutched in his hand. Kiana! The sound of her name from his throat hit like a thunderclap. She froze at the bedside, tears welling unbidden. Harrison! Oh God, you're awake? Not fully. His movements were labored, his voice a gravelly whisper forged from disuse. But awareness burned in his gaze, locking onto hers with desperate clarity. Isabel hovered in the doorway, arms crossed, but Dr. Ellis ushered her out for privacy. Give them a moment. This could be key to his progress. Alone at last, the air thickened with unspoken years. Kiana sank into the chair beside him, her hand trembling as she reached for his. I thought I'd lost you. The transfer, Isabel said. Harrison squeezed her fingers weakly, cutting her off. His eyes, those storm-gray depths she'd dreamed of, held hers captive. The kiss, he rasped, each word a Herculean effort. I felt it, on my forehead. Your tears, salt and warmth. And I heard everything, Kiana. Every word. The world tilted. Kiana's breath caught, heat flooding her cheeks as the implications crashed over her. Her confessions, the love she'd poured out in whispers, the regrets, the encouragements drawn from his notebook. All of it laid bare in his trapped mind. You heard? All of it. He nodded faintly, a ghost of a smile tugging at his lips despite the pain. Your voice, it was my anchor. In the dark, that fog where nothing made sense. You talked about the park, our fort, the checkers games, and the love. Since we were kids, it pulled me through, Kiana. Gave me something to fight for. Tears streamed down her face now, unchecked. Shock warred with relief, vulnerability exposed like a raw nerve. She'd thought her words vanished into the void, therapeutic echoes without consequence, but he'd clung to them, her secrets weaving a lifeline through his limbo. I didn't know, she whispered, her voice cracking. I thought you couldn't. I was saying goodbye. Not goodbye, he murmured, his grip tightening fractionally. You saved me. The notebook. You found it. The reparations plan. I heard you urge me to finish it. That's what kept me pushing. Not just the love, but knowing you saw the real me, the one buried under the Caldwell name. Kiana's mind reeled, the pieces aligning. His awareness had been there, flickering, absorbing her every syllable. The heart spikes, the neural responses, they weren't coincidences. They were him reaching back. Harrison, I'm overwhelmed. But Isabel, she's shipping you off tomorrow. We have to stop it. A shadow crossed his face, exhaustion etching deeper lines. Isabel, she knows about the trust. Parts of it. That's why the accident wasn't just fatigue. His voice faltered, but determination flickered. I need to tell you everything, before she interferes again. The door creaked open then, Isabel's silhouette intruding. Time's up. Doctors say rest now. But Harrison's eyes pleaded with Kiana. Stay, listen. The truth hovered on his lips, a storm about to break, ready to unravel the Caldwell secrets and bind their fates irrevocably. Harrison's whispered warning, Isabel knows about the trust. Parts of it. That's why the accident wasn't just fatigue. Hung in the air of room 412 like a storm about to break. Kiana's heart thudded, her hand still clasped in his grip fragile but resolute. Isabel's silhouette loomed in the doorway, her presence a cold reminder of the ticking clock. The transfer to Switzerland was set for dawn. Harrison's eyes, though clouded with exhaustion, burned with urgency, as if every second with Kiana was a stolen chance to unearth the truth. The monitors beeped steadily, grounding the charged moment, but Kiana felt the weight of his words shift the ground beneath her. Miss Lawson, Isabel snapped, stepping forward, her tailored blazer sharp as her tone. The doctors ordered rest. You're done here. Her gaze flicked to Harrison, softening only slightly, but Kiana caught the flicker of unease beneath her composure, like a predator sensing a shift in the wind. Harrison's voice, though weak, cut through. No, Isabel, I need her here. He struggled to sit up, wincing as the effort strained his atrophied muscles. Kiana instinctively supported his shoulder, her therapist's hands steady despite the chaos in her chest. Dr. Ellis, lingering near the monitors, nodded reluctantly. 5 minutes, he said, ushering Isabel out with a firm glance. No stress, Mr. Caldwell. The door clicked shut, leaving them in a cocoon of quiet urgency. Kiana leaned closer, her breath shallow. Harrison, what happened? The accident? What do you mean it wasn't fatigue? He exhaled, a ragged sound, his eyes distant as if peering through the fog of memory. I was driving that night, late, after a meeting with the board. I'd been digging into our family's history, those land deals in the 1920s, South Side families, black families, pushed out for pennies to build our hotels. I found proof, deeds, letters. I wanted to set up a trust, millions to compensate their descendants, a way to undo some of the damage. Kiana nodded, the notebook's scribbled plans flashing in her mind. You wrote about it. Reparations, you called it. I found the notes in your coat. His gaze sharpened, a spark of the old Harrison, the boy who dreamed of fairness in Grant Park. You did. Good. I knew you'd understand. But Isabel, she caught wind of it. I told her in fragments, thinking she'd see the justice in it. Instead, she saw ruin. Our name dragged through the mud, our wealth carved up. She called it reckless, said it'd bankrupt our legacy. Kiana's stomach twisted, the pieces falling into place. Isabel's resistance to therapy, her rush to transfer him, it wasn't just control, it was fear of exposure. So, the accident? Harrison's jaw tightened, his voice dropping to a hoarse whisper. It wasn't an accident. I remember now. Flashes. Driving down I-85 late, the road was quiet. I'd argued with Isabel that day. She was furious, said I was betraying the family. Then the headlights blinding in my rear view, my steering, it locked up, Kiana. The car wouldn't turn. I swerved, hit the guardrail. The crash report said, mechanical failure. But I know better. Someone tampered with it. Isabel didn't want me dead, just sidelined. Injured enough to give her guardianship, to stop the trust. The revelation landed like a blow. Kiana's fingers tightened on his, her mind racing. She sabotaged your car? Harrison, that's criminal. We need to tell someone. The police. The doctors. He shook his head, pain etching his features. No proof. Not yet. Just my memory, and it's spotty. She's covered her tracks. Always does. But I heard her, before the crash, on a call. He's in the way, she said. I thought it was about a deal, but now it was me. Kiana's blood ran cold. The notebook, the suspicious vehicle malfunction in the chart, it all aligned with Isabel's icy control. She glanced at the door, half expecting her to barge in, but the hall remained silent. Harrison, she's moving you tomorrow. If we don't act, she'll bury you in some Swiss facility. His eyes met hers, fierce despite his frailty. I know, but you're here, Kiana. Your voice, it kept me grounded. Your kiss, your words about the trust, they pulled me back. We can fight this together. Find the evidence. The notebook, it's a start. There's more in my office, files I hid. We need to get to them before she does. The door creaked, signaling Isabel's return. Kiana squeezed his hand, a silent vow. We will. I'm not letting her take you. She stood as Isabel entered, her presence a wall of frost, eyes narrowing at their clasped hands. Time's up, Isabel said, her voice cutting. Miss Lawson, you're dismissed. Harrison needs rest, not agitation. She moved to the monitors, adjusting a setting with feigned concern, but Kiana caught the tension in her posture, a predator guarding her territory. I'll check in tomorrow, Kiana said evenly, holding Isabel's gaze. She stepped out, the locket warm against her chest, Harrison's revelations fueling her resolve. The truth wasn't just about the accident. It was about a family's buried sins, and Isabel's desperate bid to keep them hidden. As Kiana reached the corridor, a nurse handed her a file update, mentioning a mechanic's report tucked away in storage. Suspicious wear on the steering system, it read. Her pulse quickened. Evidence perhaps, but time was slipping away. Tomorrow she'd face Harrison's final moments before the transfer, and the fight to unearth the Caldwell secrets would ignite, binding them closer than ever. The mechanic's report clutched in Kiana's hand felt like a live wire as she paced the corridor outside room 412, its pages detailing the tampered steering system. Irrefutable evidence of sabotage, buried in technical jargon but screaming Isabel's desperation. Dawn crept over Atlanta, the city stirring beyond the center's windows, but inside time hung suspended. Harrison's revelations had ignited a firestorm in her soul. The transfer to Switzerland loomed like a guillotine, Isabel's final bid to silence the truth. Yet Harrison's awakening had thrown the plans into chaos. Doctors buzzing, tests ordered, the jet grounded pending evaluation. Kiana slipped back into the room, her resolve steeling as she met his gaze. We have proof, she whispered, sliding the report onto his lap. But what now? The police? Harrison's eyes, clearer now, despite the haze of medication, held a quiet storm. Not yet, he rasped, his voice gaining strength with each word. Not like that. A scandal would destroy us all. The family name, the empire. I want redemption, Kiana. Not revenge. He squeezed her hand, drawing her closer. Arrange a meeting. Private. Just Isabel and me. You'll be there, as my support. We end this with truth, not chains. Kiana hesitated, the weight of his choice pressing on her. She tried to bury you, Harrison. What if she denies it all? But his plea echoed her own buried hopes. The boy from Grant Park, who'd always chosen mercy over might. She nodded, pulling strings with Dr. Ellis to delay the transfer further, citing Harrison's fragile state. By evening, the meeting was set, a secluded conference room in the center, away from prying eyes and press leaks. Isabel arrived like a shadow, her composure a fragile mask, but Kiana saw the cracks, dark circles under her eyes, fingers twisting a family ring. The room was dim, lit by soft lamps that cast long shadows across the table. Harrison sat propped in a wheelchair, his form still frail, but his presence commanding, the notebook and mechanics report laid out like exhibits in a trial. Kiana stood beside him, a silent pillar, her locket a quiet reminder of the love that had pulled him from the abyss. Isabel took her seat opposite, her posture rigid. This better be quick, she said, voice edged with frost. The transfer's rescheduled for tomorrow. You need real care, not this. Harrison leaned forward, his gaze locking onto hers, not with anger but sorrow. Isabel, stop. I know everything. The trust fund, the land grabs. You knew I was planning to expose it all, compensate the families we wronged, and you couldn't let that happen. He slid the notebook across the table, its pages open to his damning notes. You tampered with my car, not to kill me, but to sideline me, gain guardianship, bury the truth under fatigue and family loyalty. Isabel's face paled, her hands clenching the table's edge. You're delusional. The accident was your fault. Pushing too hard like always. This fantasy about reparations? It's suicide for our legacy. Grandpa built an empire. You'd tear it down for ghosts? Kiana's heart ached at the denial, but Harrison pressed on, his voice steady despite the strain. Ghosts? They're real people, Isabel. Families displaced, lives shattered for our hotels and fortunes. I found the records, deeds forged, communities erased. I heard you on that call. He's in the way. You thought injury would give you control, let you protect the name. But silence isn't protection, it's poison. Look at me, trapped in that void, clinging to Kiana's voice because our family's lies left me nothing else. Tears glistened in Isabel's eyes, her facade cracking like ice under pressure. You don't understand, she whispered, voice breaking. After Dad died, it was me holding everything together. The board, the deals, our name is all we have. Exposing this, it'd ruin us. I did it for the family. For you. Harrison reached across, his hand covering hers. A gesture of the siblings they'd once been, before legacy twisted them. No, Isabel, you did it out of fear. But fear builds walls, not legacies. The real inheritance isn't money or buildings. It's what we do with them. Actions that heal, not hide. He paused, letting the words sink in, then offered the olive branch. Join me. Co-manage the trust. Turn our shame into something proud. Reparations that honor the wronged. We'll do it quietly at first, build from there. Or, I go public. The report, the notes, all of it. The choice is yours. The room fell silent, the air thick with the weight of generations. Isabel stared at the documents, her shoulders slumping as conscience wrestled pride. Memories flashed in her eyes, childhood Christmases in the estate, their father's stern lectures on duty, the invisible chains of expectation. I was scared, she admitted finally, a sob escaping, of losing it all, of being the one who failed. She met Harrison's gaze, vulnerability raw. But you're right. Silence. It almost cost me you. I'll join. We'll make it right. Together. Relief washed over Harrison like a tide, his eyes shining as he nodded. Kiana placed a hand on his shoulder, her presence a quiet affirmation. The confrontation hadn't shattered them. It had begun the mending. Isabel rose, wiping her tears, a tentative peace settling. We start tomorrow, she said, voice steadier. No more walls. As she left, the room exhaled, tension dissipating like mist. Harrison turned to Kiana, exhaustion mingling with hope. "It's a start," he whispered. "Because of you." She smiled, the locket warm against her skin, knowing this forgiveness was the first brick in their rebuilt world. Months would pass, wounds healing under the Atlanta sun, leading to a future where legacy meant more than silence, where it meant redemption, shared and unbreakable. Months melted away under the relentless Georgia sun, the reconciliation in that dim conference room blooming into tentative renewal like spring vines reclaiming cracked stone. Harrison's forgiveness had been the first crack in the Caldwell facade. Isabel's tear-streaked agreement, the chisel that widened it. No public scandal erupted, no headlines screaming of sabotage or buried sins. Instead, the siblings dove into the trust fund's framework with quiet ferocity. Legal teams dissecting old deeds, historians unearthing forgotten stories, funds flowing like healing waters to descendants long denied. Isabel, once a wall of ice, thawed in increments, her boardroom sharpness now aimed at justice, her calls to Kiana laced with grudging respect. "He's stronger because of you," she'd admitted once, over a terse coffee in the center's lobby, before vanishing back into her empire of spreadsheets and settlements. For Harrison, recovery was a battlefield of small victories. Kiana's therapy sessions became his lifeline, her hands guiding his steps as muscles reawakened from their long slumber. At first, he leaned heavily on her, each shuffle down the hall a grunt of frustration mingled with determination. "One more lap," she'd urge, her voice a blend of professional firmness and intimate warmth. But as weeks turned to months, frustration gave way to laughter, the kind that echoed from their Grant Park days. "You're cheating again," he teased during balance exercises, his grin boyish as he gripped the parallel bars. "Pushing me harder because you know I hate losing." She'd laugh, her lockets swaying with the motion, their proximity charged with unspoken electricity. Therapy blurred into companionship, stolen moments where confessions lingered like aftershocks from his awakening. By late fall, Harrison walked unaided, though Kiana's presence remained his favorite crutch. The center discharged him to outpatient care, but their sessions continued, now in the sprawling Caldwell estate overlooking the city, where history's ghosts whispered from ornate halls. Isabel joined occasionally, her updates on the trust a bridge between siblings. First payouts distributed, scholarships funded, a community center rising on reclaimed land in Southside, the very neighborhood Grandpa Caldwell had raised for profit. "It's happening," Harrison would say, eyes alight, as blueprints unfurled across the dining table. Kiana watched him transform, the air shedding his burdens like old skin, emerging as the man she'd always seen. Compassionate, resolute, hers. The ribbon-cutting day dawned crisp and golden, Atlanta's skyline a glittering backdrop to the new community center. A sleek building of glass and brick, its facade etched with murals depicting resilience and roots. Crowds gathered, descendants in Sunday best, local leaders, even a subdued Isabel in a simple blazer, her role now co-director etched on the plaque. Harrison stood at the podium, his cane discarded weeks ago, voice steady as he addressed the assembly. "This isn't just stone and mortar," he said, gesturing to the structure. "It's atonement. For too long, my family built on silence and shadows. Today we build on truth, with partners like my sister Isabel, and the woman who reminded me what legacy truly means." Kiana stood beside him, her heart swelling as applause rippled through the crowd. The center symbolized everything: healing for the community, with classrooms for job training and clinics echoing Kiana's own work. Redemption for the Caldwells, turning plunder into partnership, and for them, a testament to love forged in vulnerability. As the ceremony ended, Harrison took her hand, leading her through the bustling halls to a quiet courtyard garden at the building's heart. Jasmine bloomed along trellises, the air sweet with possibility, the distant hum of the city a soft underscore. They sat on a stone bench, the sun warming their faces. Harrison turned to her, his eyes, once hazy in that hospital bed, now clear and intense. "Kiana," he began, voice low and earnest, "your words saved me from the silence. In that dark place, they were my light. The stories of our park, your regrets, your love. It wasn't just therapy. It was you pulling me back, urging me to fight for what's right. And now, this." He swept a hand toward the center, laughter filtering from open windows. She squeezed his hand, emotion tightening her throat. We did it together. You were always the brave one, Harrison, facing the past, choosing forgiveness. He shook his head, a soft smile playing on his lips. No, you showed me bravery. Loving quietly, speaking truths I needed to hear. I've loved you too, Kiana. From those fort-building days, through the years I let duty pull me away. I was a fool to hide it, scared the Caldwell world would swallow you. But you anchored me. Tears pricked her eyes, joy bubbling like a spring. The locket at her neck felt lighter, its weight transformed from regret to promise. Harrison reached into his pocket, not for a ring as she half expected, but a slim leather portfolio and a fountain pen, elegant, etched with their initials intertwined. No diamond, he said, his grin turning playful yet profound. Not yet. This is our vow, a blank plan for the next phase. Expand the center, more trusts, maybe a clinic in your name. Write it with me. For us, for everyone we've healed along the way. Kiana took the pen, her fingers brushing his, electricity sparking as it had in those therapy sessions. Together, she agreed, her voice steady with certainty. They leaned in, foreheads touching, the world narrowing to this moment. Their love no longer whispered in shadows but etched in action, unbreakable as the community they'd helped rebuild. As the sun dipped lower, casting golden hues over the garden, Harrison pulled her into an embrace, his arms strong now, free of the accident's chains. The center buzzed with life beyond them, children in classes, families in counseling. But here in this quiet sanctuary, their story found its rhythm. Not an end, but a beginning, woven from forgiveness into forever. And there you have it, the heartfelt journey of Kiana Lawson and Harrison Caldwell. A tale where love and forgiveness transform a legacy of silence into one of healing and hope. From a desperate kiss in the shadows of uncertainty to building a brighter future together, their story reminds us that true strength lies in facing our past and choosing redemption. What moved you most about their path? Was it the power of unspoken words, the courage to forgive, or the promise of new beginnings? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us where you're listening from and what time it is. We'd love to hear how this story resonated with you. Thank you for joining us on this emotional ride. Your support means the world. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more inspiring tales. Until next time, keep believing in the power of love to rebuild. See you soon.